What's up guys, Jake Lowry here, and today we are very excited because we are going to test out a new Googan Squad swim bait that just hit the fishing market, and it actually looks very, very good, guys. As I normally do, I was strolling through the internet and I noticed that Googan Squad came out with a new small line through swim bait, and I just could not but help myself from buying a couple to see if they're going to work well to catch a bunch of fish. Now, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at these lures, we're going to try them on, and we're going to see if we can't catch a bunch of fish in this lake that's sitting right behind me. Now, before we start fishing, guys, let's talk about the conditions because they are actually crazy. This morning, we woke up at about 4:30 in the morning to get here right at sunrise, but when we did, it was low 40s, which is very, very cold considering how warm it has been recently in Texas. I know for November, low 40s early in the morning isn't that crazy, but considering it's been like 80 degrees, 70 to 80 degrees every single day, that means this temp is very cold relative to how it's been. So I'm not sure how this cold snap is going to impact the fishing. I just know that the fish are going to be biting because the water is still warm and we're probably in fall conditions. Now you could tell that the water is still warm because there's a lot of fog and stuff coming off this lake behind me. Now that said, there's not an ounce of wind, which is typically not a fall thing. And I'm seeing a lot of fish just kind of porpoise on the surface. So surface activity, warmer water, and this cold snap probably is going to be pretty solid for the fishing, especially the swim bait fishing, because, you know, as that weather starts to get colder, these fish want to fatten up for the winter, and hopefully they're still pretty active. Now, that said, I fished this lake quite a few times before, and it has a lot of fish in it. It has some big fish, but it also has a lot of small fish. That's going to make it the perfect application for this swim bait because we're going to be able to hook big fish on it if we need to, but it's also not too big for this lake. I fished some very, very large swim baits in this lake before, and we didn't end up catching anything on it just because I don't think this lake has the size of fish that are willing to bite a big swim bait. But smaller swim bait like the one we're using is more similar to like the glide bait, the small glide bait that I used in this lake, and it did very, very well, guys. Without further ado, why don't we take a look at the swim bait and then we'll get it rigged up, and then we'll take a look at how well the swim bait does versus some other smaller swim baits that are on the market and if it is really worth the $8 price point. All right, guys, the swim baits we picked up today is the new Googan Squad 3.8-inch Guppy. This is a line through completely weedless swim bait. We picked it up in 3 different colors. The first color is called Threadfin Shad. This is like a greenish blue pattern. The next color is actually a goldfish pattern, which looks very, very orange and very, very bright. I'm not sure if I'm going to tie this one on because the water in this lake is so clear, but it will probably catch fish. We will see. And then the last pattern is this gray pattern that looks a little more realistic, and it's called Black Crappie. Black Crappie looks a lot like a crappie, which is probably going to be good for this lake because we know there's a lot of panfish in this lake. That said, each of these lures, there's only one size of this style of lure, is in a 1/4 ounce size, and it's 3.8 inches. It is actually very, very small. I was expecting them to be larger for the design, but it should be a good size to catch a lot of fish on it, and I think that's what Googan Squad was going for with these, similar to like a bull shad style, where if you just throw this in any lake, you can catch fish pretty much any time of year. One thing I'm concerned about is the action because the body size of this thing is very, very weird. It's not like your typical body size lure. It's more so short and fat versus like a long and skinny swim bait. So why don't we get the orange one out of the package because that one's going to look the brightest, and let's take a look at our first impressions of this thing. Okay guys, right off rip, the plastic is very, very soft and it has a really, really solid feel to it. The weight seems like it's very, very much towards the front of the bait. So I don't know if this thing's gonna run kind of like this or if it's gonna run straight. So hopefully it's well balanced. The weedless portion of this bait seems very, very strong. I think it's just very, very strong fluorocarbon. It looks like it's going to be weedless. One thing we're going to want to watch though is how good we can get hook sets on this, because that weedless thing might be a little too strong if we get smaller fish to bite. Now, that said, the hook comes right out, and it comes with a pretty large hook, and it is a line through swim bait. So you put your line through the front of that bait and then tie it to the hook, and then you could push it right in there. And what that really does is two things. It improves the durability of that swim bait, because when you hook a fish, this swim bait slides up the line and all you're doing is playing the fish on the hook. And then it also prevents that fish, when you're playing it, to have leverage on the swim bait. So if that swim bait's hooked to the side of the fish's mouth like this and you're playing it, the fish is more likely to pop it off versus just the hook and this line being way over here. Now that said, this is probably one of the smaller line through swim baits that is out on the market right now. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with the quality of this bait and the quality of its plastic. The pores look really, really good. And I think it's gonna be a killer swim bait for some smaller fish. Now that said, guys, why don't we get this one threadfin shad rigged up first? We're actually gonna fish off the kayak today, and we'll test the action first, make sure this thing works really, really good, and then put the kayak in the water and hopefully catch a bunch of fish today. Last thing, guys, before we start fishing, make sure you like this video if you like this video, and subscribe if we haven't. We just recently reached 10,000 subscribers, and our next goal is going to be 20,000 subscribers. So only you guys can help us get to 20,000. Make sure that if you guys are liking this content, you subscribe. It really helps out the channel and keeps me motivated to keep making videos. Without further ado, let's cut it to the fishing. As usual, guys, at the spot, the water is absolutely gin clear. So I'm just going to pitch out right next to this dock right here, and we'll see what the action of this thing is. Oh, wow, guys. This thing looks actually crazy. So one thing to note right off the bat is that it does sink very fast. It has a very, very fast rate of sinking. Now that said, the tail action on this thing is money. I hope you guys can see that well, but this thing has a great tail action. What happens when this thing is in the water is that tail is so flexible, it moves side to side and almost like touches the other side of this lure. I mean, guys, I am actually thoroughly impressed. I thought, you know, usually these smaller swim bait style swim baits are not very good, but right off the bat, I have no complaints with this one, guys. One thing, you know, that might be slightly questionable is it does track a little bit to the left. Now that might be how my line tag is in the swim bait, but if that's something that I need to adjust, I'll just adjust it right there. But overall, guys, I think this thing is gonna be really, really money for today. Honestly, guys, swim bait fishing is one of my favorite things to do. And I've tried a lot of swim baits, and really smaller swim baits are a great way for newer bass fishermen to get into the swim bait game. I'm not saying that I'm completely into the swim bait game, but this might be one of the best options. And at an $8 price point, you know, relative to how swim baits are now, that's honestly not a terrible price point for a smaller swim bait like this. Again, if this thing's weedless, you're not gonna be losing it, and it might be the perfect thing to catch pond bass on. So overall, genuinely thoroughly impressed with the action of this lure. Slightly concerned with how deep it sinks, you know, it's sinking rate, but you know, that's gonna make us have to fish a little faster. And overall, this is honestly a very innovative little lure that Googan Squad came out with. Has a lot of new features. I think it's gonna be absolutely killer. And the orange color, low-key, looks really good. It doesn't look like something a bass would typically eat, but it's got me sold for sure. I'm gonna try and get the kayak launched without getting wet here because it is cold as it can be right now. I honestly have my ski jacket on, and that's saying something because I use this in like the mountains of Utah. Okay, here we go. Pretty decent spot to launch though, actually. Let's see here. I think the strategy is to desandal. Put these in the back. See if we can get on this puppy without getting wet. Oh boy. Okay. I don't know if this is gonna work. Okay. Bunch of algae and stuff. Okay. Okay. There we go. That wasn't bad at all. Just a couple minor algae on the knee, but to be honest, guys, I thought that was going to be a lot worse. And we are off, guys. So the strategy today, what is the strategy? I'm not really sure. The lake is higher than I recall. The last time I was here is completely drained. So I don't really know where the fish are gonna be. It's been actually a couple weeks since I've been here, but I just know that this bank here, all the way down to the dam, is the deepest bank. On the other side here, it's actually not that good. And we're probably just gonna go over to where this water is deeper and fish it. I don't know if this orange goldfish color is gonna actually work. I think it's gonna work in ponds where the fish are just a little more aggressive. You know, this pond is so clear, I think, generally speaking, the fish want something that's a little more natural. But the goldfish color is kind of such a meme that you almost have to try it. And if I can fish this kayak today, I probably can get this thing in front of a lot of fish, which generally means that one of them is gonna bite the goldfish pattern. And honestly, it's almost like a challenge, you know? Can we catch a fish on the Googan goldfish? There is one spot in this lake that's closer to that swimming area, that buoy system, that the fish generally tend to be bigger. So if we can get over to that spot and throw this orange swim bait, I think we're gonna have pretty decent odds to catch something. Come on, fish. This also kind of seems like perfect drop shot weather. Did not bring any soft plastics though. Come on. Yep. Oh, okay, guys. Okay, definitely got my first bite on the orange guppy. That is hilarious, right at the kayak. Again, like I was saying, I was worried about that weedlessness and it impacting our hook setting capability, but that might have just been a smaller fish. Let's maybe cast towards the bank through here and see, but huge, huge first bite, guys. This is a faster reel, and I don't want to reel this lure in too fast because I think the fish are going to want to eat this thing a little slower, especially those smaller fish, because if you do reel it in too fast, it is pretty close to the surface, and that kind of requires a different style of bite versus reeling these things in slow. Okay, another bite, guys. Okay, so that's 2 bites and no fish. But that's definitely a good sign for the orange, but definitely a concern for the bait itself. You know, why am I getting bites and not hooking fish? Definitely a concern right off rip. All right, why don't we do that? Let's put on a little more realistic pattern and see if we can't get a couple bites, and then maybe we could put the orange back on and potentially hook something. What do you guys think? Green or white? To be honest, let's try green. Let's see if that green helps us give it a little more natural color and potentially give us some more odds to hook into a fish. Okay, we got the green one tied on. A little more natural color. Let's see how it looks in the water. Okay, this one honestly looks like it might have a better action too. But yeah, guys, I think this is going to help us out just a little bit. I think that orange was just a hair too unnatural for these fish, and I think the fish are, you know, a little more finicky than we give them credit for, to where we're not going to be able to catch absolutely every fish on the pond on an unnatural looking lure like that. Come on, fishy, fishy. Yep, there it is. There it is. There it is. Finally, guys. Oh my gosh, does that feel good? Not very big. Well, kind of big, but oh my gosh, does that feel good to finally get a bite on this thing. Man. Man. Not a dink. But he finally bit it right, man. He bit that thing for a while, and I picked off a nice, dinky little fish on the Googan Squad Guppy, man. So overall, we've proved that it can catch fish. It's capable of a proper hook set, and I think that confirms that this lure is a solid choice for small swim baits, man. I got that fish released. Now, why don't we see if we can't get fish number 2 and potentially confirm the use of this lure, man. But did that feel good? Whew. We've been grinding for quite a while. I would say probably close to an hour and a half, and we just haven't, you know, been able to get it done until just right then. So maybe we're also approaching a higher fish populated area in this lake too, and you know, it's only a matter of time until we end up getting a couple more fish in the boat. Yep, right at the boat, right at the boat. That's a nicer fish too. Let's go, guys. Man, right at the boat. That is huge. That is so sick. Fish number 2. I mean, we're talking he ate it like 3 feet off the kayak. Nicer fish than the first one, but still, again, not a giant. Not what we're expecting to catch in this lake as giants, but man, does that feel good. He ate it pretty deep, and again, they want it slow, guys. So that's gonna be the name of the game today is, you know, slow and steady wins the race. But fish number 2 had a bunch of bites, and I think I'm starting to get a better feel for how these fish wanna eat. Guppy, great action, great quality lure, you know, very durable, but the only thing that's kind of questionable about this lure is its hook setting ability, which is definitely a concern. Now, I have shown that you are able to catch fish on it. So we've eliminated the fact that it's not entirely capable of catching fish on it, but you know, you're not gonna catch every fish that you get bit on. Fish. Man, I was getting discouraged thinking there were no fish over here, but man, this fish is running right at me. Oh yeah, another nicer fish. Another nicer fish for this pond. Man, the guppy, fish number 3 on the day. The guppy finds the bigger fish out of the dinks, huh? Look at this. Look at that fish, guys. Now, what I'm saying is this. This is a stunted pond, so the fish are smaller. But that is a pretty solid fish for this pond on the guppy, man. Fish number 3 on the day. This thing is certified Bass Slayer. There he is. Whoa, I didn't even fight that fish. I just pulled him right out of the water. Jesus, that was a crazy thing. Right at the bank, man. Jeez. That's like the third fish, fourth fish that's bit, like pretty much at the kayak. Huh. That is a small fish for the guppy, man. I don't even know if he could fit that thing in his mouth. Barely. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up the video. We had actually a very, very good day on the guppy. We had a ton of bites, but to be honest, guys, I don't think the guppy was very, very good at capitalizing on those hook sets. And I don't think it's because the lure is bad. Really what I think it is, the lure has a minimum size at which it can catch fish. The minimum size at which a fish will bite it is higher than the minimum size at which a fish will hook into that lure. Anyways, guys, the action of the lure is really good. The colors are really good. The terminal tackle is very effective. It does a really good job at being a line through swim bait. And to be honest, guys, I'm definitely adding these to my swim bait tackle box. So overall, 4 fish, you know, had a ton of bites, probably all from very small fish. So again, probably not the lure's fault. But that said, we're going to keep fishing with these lures and definitely keep them in the box. So finally, guys, if you like this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you guys next time.